This is Football at 4.
Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It's brought to you by Bet365. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Adam Caplan from the Inside the Birds podcast. On a happy hour Friday, we've got OTAs at the NovaCare Complex. They'll have mandatories next week. We'll dive into that. Right now, the Eagles, by the way, plus 1,600 to win the Super Bowl. The Phillies are plus 700. Which team do you have more faith in? We've been asking you guys that all throughout the day. A lot of text messages to get to on the show. But Adam Caplan joins us now on a happy hour Football Friday here on the Sports Bash for Football at 4, host of the Inside the Birds podcast, which you can get on all podcasting platforms. And don't forget their YouTube channel. Just search Inside the Birds. What's happening, Adam?
Mike, by the way, 39 years ago today, do you know what that date was? You know why I'm mentioning 39 years today? 39 years ago today, that something interesting happened in the movie world. Let's see if you can get the movie that I'm referring to.
Oh, I would be terrible at this game. I'm not a movie guy. I can tell.
Really, though? As much as okay, I'll give you. It's a comedy. Like, as much as you love Seinfeld, I'm not that it's a Seinfeld.
I guess I would go Caddyshack.
Close. Fletch. Good one. See, I knew you'd come close.
I've never seen Fletch.
What's wrong with you? You've never seen Fletch? Come on, you're old enough to have seen it. Really?
I know. I'm just not a movie guy.
Oh, but you've seen Caddyshack. Please tell me you've seen it.
Yes, I've seen Caddyshack plenty of times.
All right. So you know, have you seen any Chevy Chase movies?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of the vacation movies.
Right.
I've seen
this is his best movie. Yeah. In fact, Fletch, and he was great in the vacation movies, but Mike and Fletch, it was the only movie where he basically could ad-lib most of the movie if he wanted to. He said the most fun he ever had. This was his one true star vehicle. As much as he was a featured player in most of his movies, this was really amazing. And the cool thing, before we move on here, I actually went to see where it was made in Santa Monica. I actually knew where it was made. I found out. I got information, and I actually went to see where it was made 5 years ago. I spent like an hour there. It was pretty cool. So, yeah, I love that movie. Mosher and I are sort of like obsessed with it. And some NFL guys that Jeff and I know are as well, which we kind of found out one time on a trip to the Combine. We were talking about it.
So, Adam, as we get into what's happening with Football at 4 here, Pro Football Focus ranked all 32 rosters. They had the Eagles at number 3, the third best roster in the NFL, which made me thinking, should I trust this team? Should I have faith in this team? Even more faith than I should in the Phillies this year, who are in first place. So who should I trust more? Should I put my faith in the Eagles?
Well, all right. I didn't know you were going to mention the PFF, so let me respond to that first. Niners are the best roster in the National Football League. I don't think it's particularly close. I mean, they just do. They're well coached, front to back. Eagles have a better offensive line.
By the way, they were number 1.
Okay, yeah, they should. Eagles have a better offensive line. We think we're not 100% sure because two of the guys, they have an opening at right guard, and obviously the big loss of Kelsey. But and the Niners had Trent Williams, but other than that, the Eagles are better than them in a couple spots. But they're better now. After that. Okay, and if you have the list, you could jump in there with what PFF has, but after that, it's kind of subjective because after that, you got to put Baltimore right up there.
They were 9.
Okay.
Actually, no, I think they were 5.
You got to put Detroit right up there. They're top 5 for me, if not top 3.
Yeah, Detroit's 6.
Okay, all right, I feel a little bit better about them. Kansas City. They lost their corner, who they traded, L'Jarius Sneed. They're a little bit suspect at corner. You got some of these off the field things, but they're right up there with the Chiefs. Where do they have the Chiefs?
Number 2.
Yep, that would make sense. Eagles are 3. Eagles to me.
Yeah. By the way, number 4 is the Jets.
Oh well, that's crazy. Because first of all, that's just, there's no way. And I've been with PFF in terms of enjoying their work. I'm probably one of the first ones in when Ron Jaworski showed their work like 15 years ago, but that's absurd. I know the Jets roster really well. I know the coaches in front office really well. I have a lot of respect for them, but they're not even close. Their offensive line's got significant challenges. They've added a bunch of them, but they got a lot of issues. Great defense. Mike Williams, who they signed away from the Chargers, who was cut, has come back from a torn ACL. No receiver depth. Offensive line issues. Look, if you want to debate Eagles versus Jets roster. I'll certainly debate it with anyone, but no, there's just no way that they're that high. I don't see that at all.
Yeah, they were the surprise there. You said the Baltimore was 5, Lions were 6. Right after that, 7 was Houston, 8 was Cincinnati, 9 Dallas, and 10 Buffalo.
Well, Buffalo's got all sorts of issues. I don't.
Yeah, we were surprised about the Buffalo one too.
That's a stunner. Yeah, I heard you and Josh talking about Buffalo's receivers. I mean, I happen to because I've talked on SiriusXM about it all the time. I know the receiver group really well, but it's you made a good point. Whether it was you or I think Josh made the point. Just the regular football fan probably has no idea who receivers are on the roster. Who's actually on that roster comically is Mac Hollins, who keeps moving on from team to team. But yeah, it's interesting. It's always it's everyone's opinion, but some are just. I'm not sure where they're on the Jets. But on your point about the Eagles or the Phillies, who do you believe in more, or whatever? For this, if it's just for this season only, it's clear the Phillies to me. The Eagles have some major questions, Mike. Not as much as the secondary, as they were terrible last season, but they've certainly upgraded in a big way. They actually have depth in the cornerback, which they didn't have. But you lose Fletcher Cox. That's a big loss, Mike. We don't talk about that enough. They still have major questions at the inside linebacker job. They will start 2 linebackers. Both are inside backers. The 2 young kids are starting D tackle, very gifted. But Jordan Davis loved what he said yesterday, but he hasn't done it yet, Mike. He's been a disappointment. Let's call it like it is. It's our job to do that. I mentioned the 2 offensive line issues. No depth at receiver. Depth at tight end's a little bit of a question mark. Running back depth, it's okay. Obviously, Barkley's an absolute stud, we think, still. He's got to do it now. He's got a better offensive line. But the Phillies, Mike, this is an Eagles segment, but we veer off a little bit. My only thing for the Phillies is, okay, when they play the Braves again, all the Braves have got major injury issues, but when they play the Brewers, the Dodgers, the Yankees, by the way, who they play, who I absolutely love, is the Royals. They have to play the Royals this season. That's when you're truly going to know how elite they are. But to me, it's if we only could take one of the teams, the Phillies they're closer. But see, my issue with the Phillies is I follow the Phillies religiously. That could you find one guy in AAA that's going to be even ready next year? I don't even know that.
Yeah, they got a lot of their guys up, the younger guys like Stott and Bohm. I mean, they're already here. Rojas is up here. So you're getting a couple of young guys. But, hey, we'll see. That's the fun of it. I thought that the Eagles being at number 3 was kind of a surprise to me to say they're 53-man roster. I was like, okay, maybe people have a lot different expectations. I'm not saying the expectations are low, but you have a third-best roster in football, Adam. You better be thinking about Super Bowl.
Yeah, and I agree with what Josh said. Josh said 11 to 13. I give win ranges. I would have them at 11 or 12 wins, and Josh, I think, said, 11 to 13. But now, is there upside with the Eagles? Absolutely. Now, I believe Hurts will bounce back. I love this scheme that Kellen Moore runs. They're going to have a real defensive coordinator, Vic Fangio. Who knew that the special teams would make the jump that it has, particularly last season? They're no longer a weakness of the team. They're actually a strength. The return game, which was not great, I'm talking more kickoffs. The punt return was terrific. Covey, their kickoff game returns have not been good. Well, they have a chance to be much better this season because they're going to have Isaiah Rodgers who can do it, who's done it. He's been good at it. Shipley can do it. The punt return game is already great. They have other guys who can do it. So, Mike, there are some good things, but one thing I'll leave you with, and before we move on, is we had Ryan Silverfield, the head coach of Memphis, on with us for Patreon, and this is a great interview. He gives some great stuff on Bryce Huff, who he one of the reasons why I wanted to have him on is because he coached 3 of the Eagles players. Bryce Huff, he was there one crossover year with Jake Elliott, and of course Kenny Gainwell, who he gave great information on. But look, Bryce Huff, Mike, we don't know about him as a starter. He's never been a full-time starter, so I don't see how people don't think the Eagles have questions. Of course they do,
well,
but
if you like
the better than last year.
If you like the PFF grades, they have Huff number 14 edge rusher. They have Reddick at number 18 this year entering the season. So they like Huff more than they like Reddick entering.
I don't get that, but I don't know what their basis. See, without being able to get context,
right.
I'm a big context guy. I don't know what they're basing it on, so it's hard for me to comment on that.
All right, OTAs today, last day today, and the 3-day mandatory next week. What do you expect in the mandatories? I mean, obviously these OTAs are voluntary. Some guys not there. A lot of 7-on-7 stuff. But next week, the mandatory stuff, what are we expecting there?
All right, Mike, basically what I've called OTAs is flag football. I mean, that's really what it is. 7-on-7 is flag football. I know flag really well because I've did play-by-play for it, for the American Flag Football League for 3 years. It's exactly what flag is. There's no intensity at all. There's a lot of teaching that goes on. Next week, first of all, there's spacing between the OTAs. There's no spacing with a mandatory camp. It's done on purpose that way. It's the last practice before training camp. The Eagles are one of 8 teams that have the mandatory camps. The rest of the teams have the mandatories in 2 weeks. So the Eagles, like they love to do, they like to be among the first teams off. But it's way more intense. You're going to see way more 11-on-11. There's a little bit more physical play. And I know talking to coaches over the years, this is my 25th year of covering the National Football League, this is what they really start to get an idea of the players. And OTAs, they don't ding players because there's a lot of thinking. I know the Eagles' offense does not look good, but nobody cares. It's no bearing on anything. They're learning new scheme and actually new language, as I understand. So I don't worry about that stuff. Means nothing to me. But I'll tell you what, when you see the intensity, and I plan on being there next week, Mike, for those 3 days, it's like OTAs never happened. I'm telling you, it's like going from 56K to high-speed internet. It's like a new world when you get to the mandatory camp. Boy, the energy is so great for these mandatory camps. I usually some years I'll go to 3 or 4 of them around the league. I'll drive the Giants, Jets, and Ravens, but I've seen them all. They've got way more energy, and you start really, really learning about what to look for when we get to training camp.
Yeah, I know that you got a bunch of teams opening up next week doing the mini camp. You got a lot of mandatories next week. So we're going to be getting a lot of storylines, a lot of football next week. Eagles, Bears, Cowboys, Lions, Texas, Colts, Dolphins, Lions, as we said, Vikings, Niners, and Titans. So everybody, some football news next week. The mandatories. Will James Bradbury be there? That's something we'll be keeping an eye on as well. I guess that's one of the bigger stories. Is Bradbury going to show up?
Yeah, I mean, I know he has to. The only way he would not is if the team told him to stay away, which means they're definitely going to either cut him or trade him, whether it's now or by the season. They just don't want him there because Jeff made a great point. We both had pretty good points on it, but Jeff's point was a little better. The thing is, if he gets hurt at one of these camps, a significant injury, there's no chance that they could trade him. Now, I know it's a long shot, but I never rule out anything with Howie Roseman. What I've told people is, look, if they're going to trade him, and it's $10.85 million, I think is the exact number, the fully guaranteed money they owe him, they're probably going to have to take some of that. We've seen this happen with teams where to move a player that they know or is on the downside of their career and it's got a bad contract, sometimes you have to take 75% of the cash. The other team takes 25% of it. That way, at least you get some draft pick back. But it's really one of the more remarkable stories to see, Mike, a guy who was a second-team All-Pro 2 years ago completely lose it. I'm telling you, his tape was really bad last season. He's a great guy. I get all that. But it wasn't just 1 or 2 games, Mike. It was – think about how bad they were at cornerback last season, and they also started limiting the snaps because they just couldn't have him on the field. That, never happens. Mm-hmm. But they couldn't cut him because his contract's so bad. So I don't blame the Eagles for extending him. We've dinged the Eagles sometimes when they've extended players when we think it was wrong. Like when they did that restructure and extension with Jeffrey, the last one, I remember saying this is a stupid move with his injury history, and it turned out to be a mistake. In fact, he never played again. After the Eagles moved on from him, that was it. So we'll see what happens. But, next week is going to be great. I look forward to these mandatory camps.
All right, let's look at the back end. We've been taking a little block of the Eagles' schedule with Adam the last couple appearances here on Football at 4, getting a little intel on each team that they'll face, what they look like, how they're new, how they're different. Let's go to Week 14 where we picked up from last week and go to Carolina, one of the worst teams in the league last year. This is one spot on the Eagles' schedule where they should be a pretty big favorite.
Yeah, in fact, okay. So this game's at home in Week 14. This is December 8th, Sunday, a game on Fox. I promise you, folks, this game will not be flexed. There's no chance of it. The Panthers definitely have had a good offseason. No, they're not going to be the Jaguars of 2 years ago, the Texans of last year. They're going to be better. They'll be a better coach. They have a better roster. They're not going to be a playoff team now. Could they go from what they were last year to maybe 7 or 8 wins? Boy, that's a push, but that's the strong push. I don't know if that happens, but Bryce Young clearly was not ready. The scheme under Frank Reich was not very good, as I understand it. He had no flexibility in it. Dave Canales brings a West Coast scheme. This is a good fit for Bryce Young. They have a brand new coaching staff on offense, completely different. They're keeping Ejiro Evero on their defense coordinator. They have a new special teams coordinator. But I love that they added Jonathan Brooks, the running back from Texas, who I'm told will be ready for training camp in some way, shape, or form. He may not practice a lot, but he had clean ACL tear. Miles Sanders, because they can't cut him, they owe him $6.25 million, so he's on the roster, and Chuba Hubbard will be the backups. They added Xavier Legette, their first-round pick, who they traded up for. Deontay Johnson, they made that trade from the Steelers. Jonathan Mingo's back. Adam Thielen was terrific. So, Mike, their pass target group is much better. Jatavian Sanders, a fourth-round tight end. He's a hybrid tight end, very athletic. So the other issue was their offensive line, but it's going to be better. Left tackle struggled mightily. They've got the thing is their offensive line was dreadful last season, but part of it was Ike Iguana, their left tackle, was terrible, but they're hopeful that the new scheme will help them out. They signed Robert Hunt away from the Dolphins, who's one of the better guards of the National Football League. So things will be better there. Defensively, they're very competitive. They run a 34 front. They're running Fangio. The Vero used to coach under Vic, so he's running his version of it. He's a great defensive coordinator, by the way. He'll probably be a head coach someday. So my early line would be 8 to 10 points, depending how Carolina would be, but we're a long ways away from that game.
All right, and a lot of these games deep in the season. Pittsburgh, Week 15. This is a team that made the playoffs last year, and they think, anyway, upgraded at the quarterback position.
Yeah, it is incredible, Mike. They've completely changed their quarterback room. Where Kenny Pickett struggled, though he had a winning record. It's kind of odd as a starting quarterback for the Steelers. He's had a winning record, but he hasn't played well. He's in a better system. He's going to be better coached. No question about it here with Philly. And Justin Fields right now and Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson will be their starter. Fields will back him up. Arthur Smith is going to be heavy 12 personnel, heavy run scheme. They're going to run the football. Pickens is a really good young receiver. They're number one. Roman Quinn will be their Quinn, the receiver, the second-round receiver from University of Pittsburgh. Roman Quinn was the Phillies player. It is Roman Wilson, not Roman Quinn. I'm an idiot. Roman Wilson. Roman Quinn is the former Phillies player, couldn't stay healthy, very fast guy. But Roman Wilson, who a lot of people like to run the National Football League, he'll be their number two. They're more of a two tight end, two receiver team. The running game is really good. It's incredible. They have 5 new starters on their offensive line over the last 2 seasons. Isaac Seumalo, I'm told, was their highest graded offensive lineman last season, Mike. So he's back. They have a new left tackle. They've switched their tackles, by the way. So they're going to be a run-first team. It's mandated from up top, and the head coach wants that. They run an old-school 34. They don't run Fangio. They run an old-school one where it's a true 34. The pass rushers, they're not overhangs quite as much. They're not right on the ball like they usually are in the Fangio scheme. They're a little bit farther back, but they're terrific there. They've added 4 new inside backers. They added a corner, Dante Jackson, in the Deontay Johnson trade. They're not good at nickel. I would spread them out, Mike. That'll be a great game. And by the way, this is, again, how TV has changed. This game the next week, December 15th, it's a home game for the Eagles, 4:25. This is a Fox game. I remember so many years when the Eagles would play the Steelers here in Philly. It was on CBS, but no longer.
Yep, a lot of that stuff is out the window these days. Let's, you take a look at those two. And, of course, 15, 16, 17, you got all division games, Washington, Dallas, New York. We talked a little bit about those. But having the 3 back-to-back-to-back division games at the end of the year, playing division teams, it gets a little bit more physical, and you know each other pretty well. Having to play them the last 3. Do you like 3 straight NFC East games to close it out?
Yeah, we discussed those teams earlier, but so it's at Washington. Obviously, the Eagles have a better roster than them. Dallas, that's pretty even, and the Giants, once again they got to play them late in the season. I'm so sick of that game. The Giants have a better roster than they did last season, and their offensive line should be better. But that's a game that you would hope the Eagles won't need so they can rest players. But it hasn't always been like that when they play the Giants. You never really know. And Mosher's right. You never know with these NFC East teams. When it looks so good on paper, the game becomes way more competitive than you think.
Yep, we know that we'll see the Giants in the final week yet again. We'll see if that means anything. Dallas, by the way, was a top 10 roster. PFF had them number 9.
Yep,
so we'll see. Adam Caplan, everybody. It's Football at 4. Don't forget to check out the Inside the Birds podcast on all podcasting platforms and their YouTube channel. Just search Inside the Birds. Adam, have a great rest of your weekend, man.
You too, thanks.
All right, Adam's back next week here on Football at 4 on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.